There she is, in the shade of an ancient tree, fast asleep, fragile, vulnerable, like a baby peacefully napping. Delicate, defenseless, and barefoot, with her book open at the page where she left off, reading a love story, perhaps. This is the woman people described as cold, calculating, scheming, and ambitious. A woman who is to become an icon of elegance, good manners, of refinement, of love. Her name was Wallis, and she inspired a passion that was to become legendary. The man who took this picture gave up everything for her: a crown, a throne, an empire. It was an image of fragility and vulnerability that was never meant to be seen in public. A truly intimate image, buried deep in a box of secrets until now. This is perhaps the most symbolic, the most personal picture of all those in the Duke and Duchess of Windsor's secret albums, which now 80 years later, Hello is revealing in a world exclusive. Almost 1,000 candid pictures which tell us, as it has never been told before, the most iconic love story in history. A legend. Secret albums which stayed under lock and key at this country retreat near Paris until their legendary love foundered at last with the death of the Duke. It was then that the widowed Duchess handed them over to the family of the woman who's sharing them now.
Pour moi, c'était un couple qui s'aimait, un roi qui a abdiqué pour une femme par amour et qui a voulu vivre une simple vie d'homme naturelle et dans un univers, dans un endroit de calme et apaisant avec quelqu'un qu'il aimait. Et pour moi, ils étaient tout le temps ensemble, ils étaient heureux. Afin d'offrir à papa pour ses services 3 magnifiques albums en souvenir en leur souvenir. Et donc voilà, ça représente toute leur vie, toute leur histoire d'amour.
For all these years, those albums, those pictures, almost 1,000 of them, have remained hidden from everyone apart from Catherine and her father. The gardener's daughter, who the Duke and Duchess adored, spent her childhood living at the heart of that love story, which was to take on a near-mythic status, a legend, a fairy tale, some of whose intimate, secret images Hello has already published exclusively, but which today we're able to see as a complete collection.
Grâce à moi, ces photos ont pu être retransmises dans le monde entier et pouvoir ressentir des émotions peut-être et avoir une image de cette merveilleuse histoire d'amour qu'ont pu vivre le duc et la duchesse et que moi j'ai pu ressentir aussi pendant mon enfance et c'est un peu comme un conte de fées.
Alors la duchesse, c'est elle qui a commencé par me dire « Henri, est-ce que quelque chose vous ferait plaisir ?» Moi j'y avais dit au majordome, le petit coffre là, ça ferait plaisir. Je ne sais pas lui demander. Alors c'est elle qui m'a dit « Quelque chose vous ferait plaisir ?» Votre Altesse royale, je ne savais pas quoi lui dire, le petit coffre, me ferait plaisir. Je vous le donne. Hein. Voilà la réponse.
Et les photos.
Ouais. Et les photos aussi.
Thomas Whittaker, one of Hello's editors, felt quite overcome when he first saw these albums, recently brought out of obscurity. It was nothing less than the most famous, best-known romance of the 20th century, told by the lovers themselves through the lens of a camera.
So someone came over from France and we immediately realised it was a huge treasure trove, something that was a game changer in history, because these were carefully crafted by the Duke himself. They were his personal albums.
The significance of these albums is terrific because they cover, in the middle, the 3 most important years of the Duke of Windsor's life, when he was Prince of Wales, when he was King, and the first year when he was Duke. These are the tipping point of his life.
I think these pictures really help you to understand their private life away from the official posed photographs.
So brought over from France, I showed them to the editors and myself and Christopher Wilson, who is a royal historian, and we were all incredibly excited. The joy for me in the album is to see the two of them together in so many frames, clearly very, very much in love with each other.
For a woman, Edward VIII gave up the crown of England, which he'd possessed for only 325 days. For a woman, for Bessie Wallace Warfield, who'd acquired the name Spencer from her first husband and Simpson from her second. Anne Sibber, writer and journalist, is the biographer who's researched in most depth the life of this woman who won the heart of a prince. Anne traced Wallis from her earliest days, looked into her family, spoke to her childhood friends, and even visited her school.
Wallis was somebody who, when she came into a room, everybody looked, wow. She loved to make an entrance. And they remembered that at this school, Oldfields, where I went. I learned a few interesting things about her as a young woman growing up. But she was married at 19, so we're looking at her in her final years. She decided very early on it was important to live vicariously through a man. She was not going to have her own career, ever.
The then Prince of Wales, blonde and with big blue eyes, was a socialite and bon vivant. A real ladies' man. Making free with his charm, he'd found his way into the hearts of lots of women, although his relationships usually didn't last very long.
He's a big child in all of them, and there's a lot of pictures in all three albums showing him enjoying the finer things in life, like a big dinner or a drink, and sporting activities, a lot of swimming by the beach, a lot of relaxation. I think he preferred to play rather than work, and the albums show him playing rather than working.
Flirtations, conquests, courtships and affairs, it would all come to an end in 1931. That was the year when a pair of sapphire eyes, a timid yet seductive smile, found their way by chance into the life of the man destined to become king. She would change the history of England, the history of love.
La primera vez que yo le vi al duque fue como yo he dicho, en su casa en París, y me gustó muchísimo, que tenía mucho charme. Yo entiendo que las mujeres le querían mucho.
While she's in London, she already knew a woman called Thelma Furness. And Thelma was currently dating the prince, and Thelma was a bit worried that the relationship wasn't quite working out. So she thought, I need somebody to introduce to the prince who'll just keep him happy while I go on a trip. And she thought, I know, there's Wallis. And Wallis was very witty, very spirited, very funny. And so Thelma was responsible for engineering Wallis and Ernest to meet the prince.
Elaine Griffith, Countess of Romanones, one of the most famous aristocrats in international society, was one of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor's closest friends, perhaps the person who knew them best. She shared everything with them, parties, dinners, holidays, and even their Paris home, and confidences. This is what Wallis told her about the start of her relationship with Edward VIII.
Ella dice que enamorarme he sabido más despacio. Aunque para mi marido, para David, ella le llamaba siempre David, él se enamoró mucho antes de que yo. Y cuando se quería casar conmigo y salía toda la publicidad tan desagradable contra mí por ser mujer, que tendría que también divorciarme de mi marido, Simpson, y ya estaba divorciado de Spencer. Ya estaba enamorado de él, pero no quería crearle un problema tan gigantesco de hacerle. Pero él insistía. Yo fui, me marché de Londres. Él decía que si no me casaba con él, que se suicidaría. Y yo sé que decía la verdad, que se iba a suicidar.
The romance started in Fort Belvediere, a fine 18th century country house which King George V had given to his son. Edward was delighted with it, so much so that he'd been landscaping the gardens, making improvements, and spending as much time as he could there. Little did he know this was the place where he would be hit by Cupid's arrow.
When George gave it to his son, he said, "I suppose you'll want it for those damn weekends, of course." Well, it was precisely for those damn weekends. And at the beginning, Thelma Furness was the maîtresse en titre. And Thelma was really very worried that she was losing her grip on the prince. So Thelma did all she could to invite other people for the weekend who would amuse the prince. And amongst those couples was Ernest and Wallis. So they went often to the fort.
The wonderful thing here is that the most important thing after Wallis that the king cared about, or Edward cared about, was Fort Belvedere, his home in the country. He wanted that as much as anything. Until he found Wallis, this was the great thing in his life. He had a checkered love life. It was an unhappy love life. But he fixed all his love and attention on this great house, and you see it from the beginning.
The future king loved his country home, where he could enjoy his hobby of gardening and entertain his friends. There were aristocrats, politicians, the occasional interesting American, plenty of famous guests, and one pair of unknowns, Wallis Simpson and her husband Ernest. Everyone was rich, amusing, they drank and dined, and their lifestyle was relaxed. It was just the place, in fact, to fall in love. And that's where it all started.
What he wanted was a home, a quiet home. He still wanted his friends to come, and he invited them every weekend, but what he wanted was somewhere relaxed. And so, although they drank champagne, although they had a footman serving them, it wasn't the same kind of a glittering existence as you would find in Mayfair or Buckingham Palace or St James's Palace. Because when those house guests came, they were expected, after a night of a nice dinner and that sort of thing, to get up in the morning and go out and hack the undergrowth in their gardening clothes. Here we've got Edward and his brother, who is going to become king after him, George VI, Bertie he's called. Bertie's come down to the fort and he's been made to hack away at the undergrowth. He doesn't look very happy there.
The Prince of Wales fell head over heels for Wallis's charms, while her husband turned a blind eye.
This is interesting because this sums up the whole story of Edward and Mrs. Simpson. Here is Mrs. Simpson right out on the edge of the photograph. This is on the terrace of the fort. Here are the house guests, and sticking on in there is Ernest Simpson, still hanging on, hoping for something, we don't know what. Some people thought he was going to become a lord if he just hung around and allowed his wife to be the lover of the prince.
Meanwhile, in London, the very foundations of the monarchy, the church, parliament and civil society were being shaken. A twice-divorced woman, a foreigner with no aristocratic lineage, was not acceptable to the royal family, nor to the country. And when in January 1936 the prince acceded to the throne as Edward VIII, the problem became a matter of state.
It was a very deep love for him. He turned to Wallis for advice. He felt that she was so grounded in ordinary life. He was fed up with aristocratic courtiers who always gave him the answer he wanted. And Wallis was just a breath of fresh air, and he loved that.
The throne of the British Empire, its crown, could not keep Edward's heart away from his loved one. She was even present, watching from a balcony as he was declared monarch. The scandal just kept growing while the king remained utterly determined to marry Wallis, the American divorcee, as she was called by the royal family.
I think, as far as the royal family was concerned, she was always that woman. It became embellished sometimes. It was that terrible woman, that ghastly woman. But they could not bring themselves to call her by her name, even when she became Duchess of Windsor.
The thing is, up until the moment when he became king, many people believed that he was actually going to give up kingship altogether. Courtiers, members of the royal family, all felt that he didn't want to become king. But the king died unexpectedly, and it made life very difficult for him. There was nothing he could do. He had to accept the throne.
Barely 6 months after Edward VIII had taken the throne came the moment of truth. The steamship called the Nalin, a cruise along the Dalmatian coast, a summer of intense romance. Through that sea, its blue and green waters dotted with islands, flows a love story, a passion which couldn't be overcome in that garden of nature. Between lavender and pine, a decision took root and grew, a decision that was to shock the world.
There is no talk of divorce. So he believes that by taking her away on holiday, he will get her on her own, and he will finally be able to pledge his love to her and get her to agree to divorce. And that was the whole purpose of the Nalin trip, was to take her away and also to show her some of the splendor that she would have if she were his wife. It was a very expensive trip. It was very luxurious, and he could show her just what it would be like being by his side.
That cruise was a bubble of bliss in the midst of the storm of controversy whipped up in Britain by the course its king was sailing. This is the first time we've seen pictures taken inside that bubble of bliss. Sheltered inside, tucked away from the storm, the couple we see look very much at ease together, sometimes open, sometimes challenging, but always in love.
These photographs show them when they don't know what's going to happen next. We know what's going to happen next. We know there is going to be a huge fallout, there's going to be a row, there's going to be abdication. And they are inside this happy little holiday, completely unaware of it, and you see the expression of happiness on their faces, not knowing what's coming next.
For 6 weeks, Edward and Wallis, who were still married, holidayed with a carefully chosen group of friends, in which Simpson was not included. They enjoyed a cruise which started in Yugoslavia and made its way around the coasts of Greece and Turkey, weighing anchor in idyllic waters, visiting charming towns, eating, drinking, and playing. A romantic voyage, a fairy tale.
And he's got her on the deck of the Nalin. They're going off on a 6-week cruise, and he's still looking pretty tense from all the work he's been doing as king over the past 6 months. But you'll notice that she has put her arm round him, and it's the start of a voyage which they end up thinking of as one of the best times in their lives.
Me lo contó años después. Dice que pasaba muy bien. Tenía muchos amigos que invitaban a ir con ellos. Tenía un barco fantástico. Que lo que dice que la persona que más entretenía era el primer ministro de Turquía.
What's interesting about these photographs, because you don't see them anywhere else, is this figure which the world's greatest designers are competing to clothe. And, you know, in Paris, immediately after the war, she is clad from head to foot in these beautiful clothes. You never see the figure because she never goes out other than fully dressed. So this is just one moment when we actually get a glimpse of this slender figure which so captivated him.
Of course, an even bigger scandal if the photographs had been showed in the 30s of him enjoying life with a woman who was still married. And a lot of the photographs are very cosy, and she's in her bathing costume, and he's on the beach and he's topless and he's on lilos and he's having a lot of fun with her, clearly as his girlfriend, even though she was married, which was a huge, huge scandal and the reason he had to give up the throne.
The Nalin was a respite of peace, love and fun in that turbulent year. The year when the Spanish Civil War started and menacing clouds began to gather over Europe. Edward surrounded himself with their best friends at that time.
It's a luxurious yacht, a rich man's plaything, a place where you can relax and enjoy a wonderful Adriatic cruise where servants will serve you and give you drinks and anything you want at all times. No, it was a very luxurious cruise.
The royal party was in the mood for fun when it embarked on the luxurious vessel in the Dalmatian port of Šibenik. It got a warm welcome from a cheering crowd of more than 20,000 local people. That's how it started, the journey that won Wallis over.
I think what you see is that he is an incredibly popular figure. There are shots where he goes out and mixes with the crowds, and you see this extraordinary affection that they have for this wonderfully romantic figure.
The time on board is spent lying in hammocks, sunbathing, sipping cocktails and champagne, cracking jokes and playing board games. It all fits together like a picture puzzle that Edward can show to the world. The expedition makes several stops, and the party, with Edward and Wallis leading the way, goes ashore in picturesque towns, bathes off beautiful secluded beaches, visits historic ruins, and buys from the little local shops. Everywhere they go, they're warmly received. What's more, the king has his camera constantly in hand, taking shot after shot of his beloved. A dream trip.
In a way, the whole story of these three albums is summed up in this beautiful picture of Wallis asleep. Historians have characterized her as being hard, being tough, being strong. And here you see, as we all do, having a nap in the sun after lunch, vulnerable, and yet looking beautiful at the same time.
I've never seen this photograph, for example, of Wallis sleeping, and that was really taken in private, presumably with the expectation that the world would never see it.
A picture taken by the king who is in love with her, and the love is in that photograph.
While Edward and Wallis were peacefully sailing the Mediterranean coast, back in London in political, church and royal circles, the concern and scandal kept growing. The king still aspired to marry Wallis without giving up the throne, but opposition was growing even stronger.
Sí dio pie a que el primer ministro británico fuera a ver a Eduardo y plantearle un ultimátum. O dejaba ver a Wallis Simpson o abdicaba.
And suddenly Wallis realised that she was the most hated, vilified woman in the world, and she really hadn't focused on that before. So at that point, too late of course, she wrote to the king and said, "We must break it off because you and I will only create disaster together."
That pleasure cruise, those sweet and lazy days, made sure of two things: the end of Wallis's marriage to Ernest Simpson, and her and Edward's complete commitment to each other, and to the love which had shocked the world. Wallis moved to London into a mansion in Regent's Park, provided for her by the king, but the situation worsened daily. The pressure on the king to give up Wallis was now almost unbearable.
The interesting thing is that the British are very hypocritical. They believe that as long as you behave in public one way, what you do in private is something else altogether. So those who knew that the king was taking his mistress on a boat trip were perfectly happy with that because they didn't believe that anybody would ever find out about it. And It's extraordinary how they nodded and approved of him going on this trip on the Nalin, but the moment that it actually became public, they all turned their backs on him.
In those last days, the king tried for every option that might mean they'd allow him to marry Wallis, even proposing a morganatic marriage. Parliament opposed him, the government opposed him, the church opposed him. And on the 10th of December 1936, Edward VIII, incapable of bearing the weight of the crown any longer without the support of the woman he loved, abdicated and handed over the kingdom to his brother. The legend had begun.
But you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do, without the help and support of the woman I love.
Ella estaba muy disgustada, decía que estaba sentada escuchándolo por el radio y le daba tanta pena, le daba horror y estaba desesperada.
They accused her of being a witch, a spy, a harlot. They threw everything at her. And she was clever enough to understand that if he goes ahead with the abdication, I'll be the one who's blamed. But that wasn't the case. It was him. He was the one who could not live without her.
Edward still had to wait 6 long months until the moment arrived. In June 1937, 2 diamond-set platinum wedding bands made by Cartier finally sealed their union in a ceremony held at the Château de Candid in France's Loire Valley. It wasn't a cheerful event. The couple's rejection by the royal family and the absence of friends meant the long-awaited ceremony was a brief and especially intimate affair. Perhaps that's why Wallis, who was marrying for the 3rd time, chose a simple dress in blue crepe, matched with a small feathered fascinator. There was no call for a lavish reception.
Only 7 people come to their wedding at the Château de Candid, and amongst those 7 there are professionals like Cecil Beaton and the florist. And on the wedding day, Edward gets the real bombshell of his life. He's abdicated in a hurry before he's really thought about where they're going to live or how much money they'll have. But he hadn't sorted out the title. And on the wedding day, he is created Duke of Windsor, HRH, and Wallis is created Duchess of Windsor, no royal initials. For Edward, that was really unforgivable on the part of his family.
Europe was suffering the instability provoked by Hitler's rise, and war loomed on the horizon. The Windsors, not being welcome in England, set up home in the Château de la Croix on the French Riviera. It is said that their move was on an epic scale. Wallis, now queen of the house, directed everything, supervising, organizing, deciding every detail.
I think she was extremely happy to suddenly have a home of her own at a very high level, and she learnt very quickly how to decorate homes to an exceptionally high standard. So yes, this was a very enjoyable creative process, but you see in their faces where they're moving furniture around the expectation that this is only going to last a short time. And it's rather tragic in a way. You see Wallis with a vast carpet which she's going to put into one of her houses, looking at it with pride and thinking, well, it won't be long before we're back in Britain. And it never happened.
Soon, though, the couple would return to doing one of the things they enjoyed most, traveling. Nostalgic for their magical summer together in 1936, they took another cruise, visiting Rapallo, Capri, Florence, Pisa, and Naples, where they toured the ruins of Pompeii.
It just is rather poignant to see them, enjoying themselves. Then later, they go on a mini trip on this ship, the Gulzar. It's rather like the trip that they did on the Nalin, and they go to visit places which they've always wanted to visit, Pisa and Florence and Pompeii and Ischia. and a number of other places. And you can see now, with the abdication behind them, with all the fuss and bother over, now that they've found a home, now that they've got what they think is a future for themselves, you can see them truly relaxing in the company of their friends Herman and Catherine Rogers. And this is a happy time in this album. This is on the Italian trip, and there's nothing that Edward likes more than to get in with the workers. And you remember his getting out into the woodland around Fort Belvediere, but if he sees people at work, he wants to get involved, and here they are at harvest time. He's ready to pitch in himself.
The Duke, very much a boy at heart, enjoyed being away from the formality and protocol of palace life, and invented all sorts of antics to entertain them. Harvesting hay with the country folk, or posing with a turban for a crown.
So here is Wallis with a little parasol and an umbrella, and the Duke of Windsor with a pipe and a bizarre towel around his head, looking like a Turkish sultan. I mean, it's obviously a photograph that was intended only for them, but actually this is a much more tender, romantic photograph, so perhaps they wanted to have that framed, although I've never seen Wallis with that little scarf on. So these are unusual photographs.
He's very much like a child with a napkin on his head, smoking a pipe, and it just sums him up. He's just like a big child of a woman he loved.
When war breaks out, the Duke and Duchess's plans are thrown into disarray. Hitler invades France and the British government is alarmed. A member of the royal family, an ex-king in enemy-occupied territory, could lead to catastrophe.
Y él no se quiere mover de allí. Por fin convencen al cónsul británico en Niza, al cónsul general británico en Niza, a que vaya a hablar con él y le convenza de que se aparezca de Francia porque corre peligro de que los alemanes le cojan prisionero.
The Duke and Duchess and some companions leave for Barcelona in a convoy of cars. They spend 2 nights there, then continue on to Madrid, where they stay for 3 nights in the Ritz before heading on to Lisbon. Churchill, who's determined to get the Duke away from the trouble in Europe, sends him to the Bahamas in the role of Governor-General. It was the start of a new exile.
Edward is always furious at being sent to what he calls a backwater. He wishes that he could be somewhere where he was having a more important role in prosecuting the war.
When the war came to an end, the Duke and Duchess seized the chance to return to Paris and take up their former social life once more. For a while, they lived in the Château des Mailles in Versailles. Later, they settled in what is to become their definitive home, an old mansion in the Bois de Boulogne, which the city allows them to have for a peppercorn rent.
I think that he always wanted to be in Paris because it was one step away from London. Always throughout his life, almost to the end, he believed he would be invited to come home to Britain. And Paris being the nearest place to Britain, he hoped that if he stayed there, then people would invite him back sooner or later.
Villa Windsor, with its setting surrounded by tall trees, was to become the epicenter of the love story of David, as she called him, and Wallis. The departure point for a life of travel and luxury, of parties and famous friends.
I think what's interesting about the third album is you are now seeing a couple who are newlyweds, who are facing the future. They have no idea what's going to happen next. There is war, but there is worse than that, because They don't realise they are never going to be invited back to their homeland. They are never, ever going to come home to England. They believe that they are making a house in Paris or in the south of France, which will only be a temporary residence.
The most romantic story of the 20th century was set against an ever-changing backdrop of glamorous venues, as its hero and heroine appeared at every aristocratic gathering, from Cannes to Samoritz, from Deauville to Palm Beach. Balls, golf tournaments, charity galas, wherever they went, the Duke and Duchess were the stars of the society pages. Hello's exclusive photographs give a glimpse behind the scenes of that life, the most glamorous exile that had ever existed. Away from the public eye, away from the flashbulbs, this is the couple's intimate daily existence, meant for their private treasure chest of memories. A love story, seen through the eyes of its hero and heroine.
Up until we see these albums, we know the story about the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. It's been told many times. This is the first time you're seeing it from their point of view, and when I looked at these photographs, I suddenly saw it from a completely different angle. I saw how they saw the history which they were living through.
Et mes parents n'ont pas réalisé que c'était un souvenir intime. Je pense que en fait, je sais pas très bien. En fait, je pense que c'est des albums qu'ils avaient, mais ils avaient énormément d'albums. Et je pense que le duc a offert ça à papa en voulant lui montrer son estime pour lui et en voulant lui montrer que voilà, c'était son histoire. C'est plus symbolique par rapport à l'histoire de sa vie que par rapport à... c'est par affection et par amitié, mais je pense que c'était plus par rapport à sa vie.
Lots of the pictures in these personal albums were taken by Edward himself. Naturally, the first choice of subject for this man so much in love with her was Wallis. In the pictures, both reveal their intimate selves. In private, without splendid clothes and jewellery, enjoying spontaneous moments with their closest friends, simply in love.
Pour moi, c'était des gens exceptionnels, pleins de tendresse, d'affection et qui ont su nous le montrer à moi, à mon père, et qui ont su couper cette barrière entre deux mondes de cultures différentes. Et voilà. Donc c'était des gens simples avec des émotions, avec des gens normaux en fait.
Tout le temps que le duc était en contact avec moi, il était vraiment... Il ne faisait pas voir son rang.
Catherine, the daughter of the gardener at the couple's country retreat, les Moulins de la Tuileries, was a privileged witness to their private life there, which is now being revealed for the first time. They'd bought the place near Paris as a weekend home and was to become their hideaway.
Voici le Moulin de la Tuilerie, un endroit merveilleux où habitaient le duc et la duchesse de Windsor. Et un endroit de rêve où ils ont pu vivre leur belle histoire d'amour et qui m'a permis, moi, pendant toute mon enfance, de vivre un véritable conte de fées. Le premier souvenir du duc et de la duchesse remonte au jour où nous sommes présentés. Donc à l'époque, j'avais 6 ans. Et pour moi, c'était un grand jour, une grande émotion.
Le Moulin de la Tuileries, the only house that Edward and Wallis actually owned, was a peaceful oasis in their hectic social lives. It's where they could relax with their friends, dress down, stroll in the gardens, swim in the pool, simply be in love. Years later, and now a mother herself, Catherine returns there for hello. She's accompanied by her children because she wants to share with them her memories of the Duke and Duchess in the very place where, as a girl, she walked hand in hand with Wallis as she lived that fairy tale.
Et je pense que les deux ont un impact sur ce que je suis devenue par la suite, en grandissant. Le fait d'avoir eu cette chance et ce bonheur d'être à leur côté a construit ma vie. C'est-à-dire que je pense que le fait de voir tout ce protocole, c'est cet univers plein de richesses, mais richesse pas uniquement en valeur patrimoine, cette richesse de cœur, ce savoir-vivre, cette façon de se comporter, avec cette façon de recevoir les gens, la façon de tous les jardins, les fleurs, tout ce qui est cette beauté naturelle a fait que oui, ça a modelé mon esprit et ma façon de voir la vie aujourd'hui.
In that environment, relaxed, friendly and informal, the Duke and Duchess, who never had children of their own, treated Catherine like a daughter. They took her to school in their car, gave her presents, spoiled her. It was idyllic.
La Duchesse était une femme pleine d'émotions et pleine de tendresse à mon égard. Je pense que c'était quelqu'un qui avait beaucoup d'affection, enfin, qui n'ayant pas d'enfant, je pense qu'elle s'était prise d'affection pour moi et adorait être à mes côtés. Et dès qu'ils arrivaient, dès qu'ils venaient au Moulin, son premier souhait, c'était de me retrouver, de m'emmener avec elle, me promener dans le jardin ou partager un moment à ses côtés, prendre un thé. Lorsque je me promenais avec elle dans les pièces, j'ouvrais mes yeux de petite fille comme... pour moi, c'était un conte de fées. Et voilà, j'étais émerveillée par tout ce que je voyais. Et effectivement, de sa chambre, par exemple, j'ai des souvenirs des placards remplis de chaussures de toutes les couleurs, comme des chaussures de princesse ou de Cendrillon, parce qu'elle avait un pied tout petit. Et j'étais émerveillée.
It's only natural that the gardener's little daughter, stroking the dresses hanging in the wardrobes and coming across rows of shoes in all the colors of the rainbow, should have become fascinated by them. If there's one thing that's true of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, it's that they dressed beautifully, to the extent that they became style icons. The pictures in these secret albums prove their love of fashion, a passion they always shared and which made them unique, unforgettable.
The Duke was quite a trendsetter, and in fact he made men's fashion. He put it on the map, really, and that has continued to today. Ralph Lauren, for example, has been influenced by his style. Ralph Lauren particularly loves the British aristocracy, the way that they dress. He had little touches like his Windsor knot necktie or his +4s, his tweeds, his bumblebee socks, his checks. He really embraced fashion. He had fun with it. The Duchess of Windsor was very timeless as a fashion icon. I mean, today she's still being copied. She's still the inspiration for designers like Stella McCartney.
Just like Catherine, the world's greatest designers were fascinated by the Duke and Duchess's wardrobes. Givenchy, Dior, Schiaparelli, all the great names in haute couture wanted Wallis to wear their creations.
I think there are a lot of designers who would pay tribute to her. Roland Mouret, the British designer, made a dress for her, or made a dress in her honour a few years ago, and he paid tribute to the fact that whether you liked or didn't like her, you know, people were still obsessed by her. Kate Middleton, when she became engaged to Prince William, she wore a wrap dress that was modelled on one that the Duchess of Windsor had worn as well. That was by another British designer.
No tenía mucho encanto, pero fue una señora muy elegante. El pelo siempre perfecto y unas joyas impresionantes.
Impressive clothes need impressive jewellery. Edward wants to prove to Wallis how much he loves her, as if giving up his imperial crown were not enough. So he gives her some of the most magnificent jewellery of all time, as the pictures in these albums attest.
Now you see the fun has started. The abdication is behind. The future looks rosy, and the one thing that Edward wants to do more than anything else is show off his brand new wife and all her jewels which he has bought for her. And here we have a matching set of jewels which are newly minted and put round her neck, and she's happy and so is he.
Simonetta Gomez Acebo, cousin of King Felipe VI of Spain, and like the Duke of Windsor, a descendant of Queen Victoria, is a spokesman for Cartier, the Duke and Duchess's favorite jewelers. She's well acquainted with the spectacular collection they built up during their long romance.
A lo largo de 40 años encargaron muchísimas piezas, no sabemos exactamente el número, pero sí que fueron muchísimas y piezas muy importantes, tipo el collar de amatista, encargaron 3 panteras, el collar de anteojos de tigre, se encargaron muchísimas piezas, la verdad, y de tipos muy variados, algunas joyas, otros objetos, o sea que hay de todo.
Sapphires, rubies, corals, diamonds, amethysts, emeralds. It seemed there was no precious stone that Edward didn't choose for Wallis. Some of her jewellery he designed himself, while most was made by the House of Cartier, which the Duke dubbed the King of Jewellers and the Jeweller of Kings.
Hacen pedidos muy personalizados, toman la W y la E como símbolo de ellos, como Wallis y Edward, y luego en 1947 el Duque trae a Cartier el molde del dibujo, cómo quiere que sean ejecutadas la W y la E, que tiene un doble juego de palabras en inglés, porque significa we, nosotros, y también Wallis y Edward, con lo cual les servía para ese gran amor que tuvieron siempre entre ellos, pues que quedara reflejado en sus iniciales también.
If we have to pick one thing among so many shining examples, perhaps we should recall the unique necklace that Wallis wore for the first time in no less grand a setting than the Palace of Versailles.
El collar draperí de amatistas y turquesas es un collar que encarga el duque en 1947, es oro trenzado de 2 quilatajes diferentes, de 18 y de 20 quilates, una amatista central en talla corazón, 27 amatistas talla esmeralda y luego una amatista ovalada. Las amatistas las aportó el duque y los diamantes también, y Cartier lo único que aportó fue el diseño y las turquesas. Y la verdad que fue un collar que la duquesa lució durante muchísimo tiempo en muchísimas ocasiones. Y es verdad que es un collar muy emblemático tanto para nosotros como para ellos.
Le Moulin, oasis of calm though it was, didn't keep Edward and Wallis away from their busy social life, nor their constant journeys back and forth across the Atlantic. That's how they met bankers and presidents, princes and multimillionaires, and famous business magnates like Henry Ford. It was a time of balls, golf tournaments, parties and receptions. Marbella on the Costa del Sol was a fixture for the gilded set.
Ellos sabían que yo iba siempre y tenían la ilusión, el interés de ir a un sitio caluroso donde no estaba lloviendo en la mitad de verano, porque habían pasado veranos terribles. Y entonces yo les invité, es la única vez que yo invité a mi casa, y vinieron a mi casa en Marbella, que tenía una casa en Los Monteros, en la misma playa.
At that time, Marbella, once a little fishing village on Spain's Mediterranean coast, was becoming an idyllic spot where the world's richest people, the cream of international society, gathered. Aristocrats, film stars, exiled kings, financiers, politicians, the place could have been made for the Duke and Duchess of Windsor.
Aquí, en Marbella, conocí los duques de Windsor por la primera vez en persona. Ellos estaban clientes a menudo de Marbella Club y habían venido la primera vez en el 62, en marzo 62, buscando el clima dulce aquí de la Costa del Sol. Todos lo recuerdan con mucha ilusión y con mucha alegría, porque han hecho mucha vida aquí, a pesar del hecho aquí. Todos los amigos que viven en casas particulares alrededor hicieron un esfuerzo para dar un almuerzo, una cena para ellos, para invitarle, para atenderlo también. así que han vivido aquí una vida muy social y muy feliz.
Les gustaba mucho el sitio, entonces compraban enseguida un terreno muy grande al lado pegado a nuestra casa, en la misma playa. Pero después, eso lo tenía, estaba a punto de empezar la construcción, 2 años después de comprarlo, cuando de repente el duque se puso enfermo, tenía que ir a Texas para operarse.
It took 24 years before Edward and Wallis, the couple whose love had become a legend around the world, were able to make the journey they'd always longed for, to heal the wound they'd borne ever since the day that he'd chosen love over his kingdom. It took 24 years before they could return to England.
And they're in a terrible limbo because, again, Edward would really like to come back to England. He'd like to live in the fort. That was his home. Nobody else is living there. And I think Wallis would have liked to live in England as well at that point, but it's made very clear to them that they won't be welcome. Effectively, they are exiles, because unless Wallis has royal initials, she won't be treated properly. And Edward thinks this is such an unnecessary insult to his wife.
La única vez que fueron a un acto oficial a Inglaterra, que volvieron después de su visita a Madrid a Inglaterra, fue ya en los años 60, cuando se cumplió el centenario del nacimiento de la madre de Eduardo. Hubo unos actos oficiales, ellos estaban allí, Eduardo y Wallis, apenas se miraron a la cara con la actual reina y la reina madre de la actual reina, y solamente les invitaron a los actos oficiales. A las fiestas que hubo después, no.
Years later, when the bad feeling had faded, the British royal family made another gesture of peace towards Edward and Wallis. Queen Elizabeth, Edward's niece, travelled to France with Prince Charles, and they visited the Duke and Duchess at Villa Windsor. That was shortly before Edward's death.
Je me rappelle de la maladie du duc et j'ai en souvenir une ou deux fois de sa venue au Moulin. Il avait du mal à s'exprimer et à parler parce qu'en fait il avait mal à la gorge et donc j'avais pris pleinement conscience de sa maladie à ce moment-là, qui m'avait beaucoup aidé d'ailleurs.
Porque la última carta que escribió el duque era una carta a mí pidiéndome de ocuparme de ella, de ayudarla una vez que se moría. Y ella decía, nunca le decía, ella jugaba que no sabía que estaba muriendo, él jugaba que él no estaba muriendo. Entonces murió en sus brazos. Y decía que cuando había visto la última de sus ojos azules, describía que él pensaba que no iba a volver a ver esta cara tan maravillosa que quería tanto, este hombre que la había querido tanto, que le había hecho su vida tan agradable, tan tierna.
Edward Albert Christian George Andrew Patrick David, King of England, Duke of Windsor, the man who'd given up a throne for the heart of a woman, passed away on the 28th of May 1972 in his home in Paris, the principal setting for their epic love story. The Duke's funeral took place in the chapel at Windsor Castle. The Queen and the whole royal family were there, and so was Wallis.
La Duchesse, après le décès du duc, est devenue une femme qui, je pense qu'elle s'est isolée en fait, elle s'est isolée du monde. Et elle est restée donc à Paris, isolée du monde.
Wallis, Duchess of Windsor, born Bessie Wallis Warfield, the woman who changed the history of England, couldn't bear the death of the man, the king, the soulmate, whom she had loved absolutely, unconditionally. She couldn't bear not feeling his affection, hearing his laughter, looking into his eyes. Without him, life became for her a dance without music. Wallis remained confined to her home during the years that followed, cherishing her memories, her Edward, trying to keep the fragile bird of memory from escaping the cage of dreams. Her death on the 24th of April 1986 was the final chapter in that magical book that she and Edward had written together, which had given a whole new dimension to the words, to love. To love would from now on always mean Wallis and Edward. It would mean the story of a man who couldn't turn away from his heart's truth, and of the woman who adored him beyond imagination, beyond death. The Duke and Duchess of Windsor, the love story, the legend.
But you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love.